A is for Auschwitz, a place close to hell. B is for Birkenau, where brave children dwell. C is for children standing tail-lapel. D is for dead people, bodies everywhere. E is for experiments done on me in a lab. F is for the food I so seldom had. G is for gas chambers where people had no chance. H is for high voltage in the huge barbed wire fence. I is for the ink that was burned into my flesh. J is for justice, sold out for cash. K is for the capo, a monster with a whip. L is for the lies that seem to creep and creep. N is for Dr. Mengele, the angel of death's foreman. N is for the Nazis, seem devils, not human. O is for the orphan that I very young became. P is for potatoes I organized at AIM. Q is for the queasy that my stomach cried in vain. R is for the huge rats that my bread were often stealing. S is for the human soap that I washed with without knowing. T is for the tattoo that my arm will always bear. U is for the universe that didn't seem to care. V is for the victory that finally arrived. W is for the world that left me so deprived. X is for the X-ray that my body often had. Y is for the years of childhood I never had. Z is for the zest of life that makes me glad, not mad.
Mein Name ist Rainera Hoessa. Ich bin der Enkel von Rudolf Franz Ferdinand Hoess, der berüchtigste Kommandant des größten Vernichtungslagers im 20. Jahrhundert, das es je gegeben hat. Auf dem Gelände von Auschwitz geschaffen, im besetzten Polen, 1940 bis 1945. Ich besuchte Auschwitz, um mit meinen eigenen Augen zu sehen, was mein Großvater in dieser schrecklichen Zeit geschaffen hatte. Zu sehen, auf was der Rest der Familie Hoess so stolz ist. Es hat mich berührt und zutiefst geschockt. Es war eine unglaubliche Erfahrung für mich, das erste Mal dieses monströse Lager zu sehen. Ich wurde von meinem Vater trainiert, keine Emotionen in der Öffentlichkeit zu zeigen. Über all die Jahre meiner Jugend wurde ich von meiner eigenen Familie belogen und im Unklaren gelassen, welche Beteiligung an diesen Verbrechen unsere Familie hatte. Wie tief wir doch in diese Gräuel verstrickt waren und wie man versuchte, uns zu ideologisieren mit dieser Unwahrheit der Nazis und der abscheulichen Taten gegen die Menschlichkeit. Rudolf Hoess war immer ein Held in meiner Familie und sie priesen ihn als den guten Soldaten. Er wurde nach dem Krieg 1947 in Auschwitz an dem Ort gehängt, welchen er so perfekt kreiert hatte, um Millionen Menschen das Leben zu nehmen.
I was born in 1934 in a tiny village called Port in Transylvania, Romania, the youngest of 4 daughters. We were born, the twins, Miriam and I were born in 1934. And by 1940, Hitler was ruling Europe. The Hungarians occupied our village, and immediately a lot of new laws against Jews were enacted that ended up in May of 1944 in a cattle car for 4 days without food and water. End of May, it was hot. And after 4 days of traveling, wasn't really much traveling, more like a horror already, the cattle car stopped. I could see nothing, but there was a little patch that I could see through the barbed wires in the window. Gray sky. I heard a lot of Germans yelling orders. The cattle car doors opened, and thousands of people stepped down onto a strip of land, or strip of cement as it was then, called the selection platform. Well, my mother grabbed my twin sister and me by the hand. We were her youngest children, and she hoped somehow that as long as she could hold onto us, that she could protect us. Everything was moving very fast. A lot of yelling, crying, schnell, schnell, dogs barking, pushing. And as I looked around, I realized that my father and two older sisters disappeared in the crowd. Never ever did I see them again.
Die Familie Hoess lebte auf dem Gelände des Konzentrationslagers, am Rande des Stammlagers Auschwitz I, in der Nähe der ersten Gaskammer und des Krematoriums, etwa 100 Meter von der Villa entfernt, wo er die millionenfachen Morde an Männern, Frauen und Kindern organisierte und befehligte. Mein Vater selbst wuchs dort auf und wurde dort auch eingeschult. Er besuchte die Grundschule im Jahr 1943 in Auschwitz, 300 Meter entfernt von der Villa. Er planschte freudig im Villa-eigenen Pool, welchen meine Großeltern dort erbauen ließen. Die 2 Jungen und 2 ihrer Schwestern fühlten sich wie Chefs in Auschwitz und manchmal benahmen sie sich auch so.
So now we are holding on to my mother for dear life. A Nazi is running in the middle of the selection platform, yelling in German, Zwillinge, Zwillinge, twins, twins. We did not volunteer any information. We had no idea what this place was and what worked there. He approached my mother, the Nazi guard, and demanded to know from my mother if we were twins. And my mother asked, "Is that good?" And the Nazi nodded yes, and my mother said yes. At that moment, another Nazi came, pulled my mother to the right, we were pulled to the left. We were crying, she was crying. And all I remembered was seeing her mother's arm, my mother's arm stretched out in despair, reaching toward us. I didn't understand that this would be the last time that we would see her. And all that took 30 minutes from the time we stepped down from the cattle car. Miriam and I no longer had a family. We had no idea what would become of us.
It was in 1940 that the whole family came from Sachsenhausen, where they live in the officers' area. There were 4 children when they arrived here, and my youngest aunt, she was born in 1943 in November, here at Auschwitz. And Dr. Glauberg was the guy who bring her on Earth. And he was also a doctor for the experiments on women under control of Mengele. So, and he also was the doctor who bring my father on Earth in Dachau. And it was 5 minutes to 12 before Hitler had his speech on the 1st May in 1937 at Nuremberg to the Hitler Youth. So it was a special for my grandmother that her youngest son came on Earth on the speech of Hitler.
We became part of a group of little girls, all twins. they lined us up for registration and tattooing. When my turn came, I decided to give them as much trouble as a 10-year-old could. So 4 people restrained me, 2 Nazis and 2 women prisoners. They heated a needle over the flame of a lamp. When the needle got really hot, they dipped it into ink. They burned into my left arm, dot by dot, the capital letter A dash 7063. My twin sister Miriam became capital A dash 7064.
It was the ideology of the Nazis to see these people not as human beings. They see them as bugs, as not, no humans. It's something where you have to kill. Well, when you have bugs at home, you kill them, and they did the same.
They would put us naked in a room, about 50 sets of twins, for up to 8 hours a day. They would measure just about every part of my body, compare it to charts, and compare it to my twin sister. These experiments were not dangerous, but they were unbelievably demeaning. On alternate days, we would be taken on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday to a lab where I call it the blood lab because they would tie both of my arms to restrict the blood flow, take a lot of blood from my left arm, at the same time give me a minimum of 5 injections into my right arm. Those were the deadly ones. After one of those injections, I became very ill with a very high fever.
My oldest uncle, Klaus, he was a very cruelty guy in that time. He was in his tailored black Napola uniform, and he shot with a slingshot on prisoners out of the garden. So he knows what happens. Well, the kids as well knows what happened. Well, it was not that they only live in the garden. They went many times with their father and their whole family to Birkenau. They went to the camp. The kids in the beginning had signs around their necks with a name on it so that they not get in the machinery of death.
They measured my fever and they took me to the hospital. The hospital itself, this was filled with people who looked very ill, who couldn't even walk or talk. And Mengele came in that morning, never ever examined me. All he did, he looked at my fever chart and he declared, laughing sarcastically, he said, "Too bad, she's so young. She has only 2 weeks to live." I said, "I am going to prove Dr. Mengele wrong. I will survive and be reunited with my twin sister."
Canada was the biggest warehouse of the Nazis. So all the belongings which came on the selection platform get stored there. And it was about 100 of barracks, full of items of deported people, including clothes, furniture, everything which was interesting for the Nazis. So they packed it in and they stored it. And there are some pictures where you see that the doors never could close. Well, so much things were inside. And my family as well went there 2 times a month and pointed out what they like. So, and there was a jacket, and I described it in my book, my father wear it on some of the pictures. And I immediately recognized I got the same. And I myself loved that jacket, this wool jacket, until I know that it was from a Jewish child which came in and got immediately to the gas. It shocks me.
For the following 2 weeks, all I remember is crawling on the barrack floor because I couldn't walk anymore, and crawling to reach a faucet with water that was on the other side of the barrack. And as I was crawling, I would fade in and out of consciousness. And after 2 weeks, my fever broke, and I immediately felt a lot stronger and a lot better. It took another 3 weeks before my fever chart showed normal, and I was released and reunited with my twin sister.
There are some witnesses who said that sometimes my grandmother ordered some kids from the child prison. They have to change their clothes from the striped pyjama in normal clothes. So they bring them in and they played with the Hoess kids while there was no other people in that age. So they bring the kids in, and on the next day they get cremated, they get gassed.
But the happiness of our reunion was short-lived. Miriam looked very sick. She looked just like the living dead I left in the barrack. And I wondered what happened to her. I asked her, "What have they done to you?" She said, "I will not talk about it ever."
They used human ash as fertilizer, and later on they eat the vegetables, the strawberries, and everything which grows up in the greenhouses. It's horrible to think about it. And it was a normal way to act, to kill people by minute and use them in every details. They cut their hairs for pillows. They break out the gold teeth to make money. They used glasses again and send them back to Germany. So, and on the end, they used the bones, which get out of the ovens, as a fertilizer.
Well, after the war, Miriam was always weaker than I was. And we didn't quite understand it because I was the survivor. She got married in 1957. We lived in Israel and had her first baby, pregnant with her first baby in 1960. She developed severe kidney infections that did not respond to any antibiotics. Second pregnancy in 1963, it was a lot worse, and the doctors in Israel started to study her, and they found out that Miriam's kidneys never grew larger than the size of a 10-year-old child.
It is not as easy as people think when you realize that your grandfather was one of the monster mass murders in 20th century. I think it is a long-term process of research, and it hurts you a lot that you're aware that you're part of such a cruelty family, that they gave a shit on what other people think. They were the master race.
Miriam was the only one among the 2,000 kidney recipients that developed cancerous polyps in her bladder a year after the transplant. The doctors tried everything to stop the cancerous polyps from growing, but nothing worked. Well, her cancer metastasized, and by June 6, 1993, her lungs were filled with cancer and she died. According to the Auschwitz Museum, they used 1,500 sets of twins. The estimated number of survivors is between 180 and 250 individuals. So, most died in the experiment. In Auschwitz, as a child, how do you function in a place like that? Children up to age 13 function differently than teenagers and grown-ups. I thought that the whole world was one big concentration camp, that everybody in the world lived like I lived, without parents, in miserable conditions, starving to death, guarded by Nazi guards day and night. Until end of August, an airplane appeared over the skies of Auschwitz. It was flying very low. I could see the American flag on one of the wings. That gave me hope that somebody was going to free us. And hope in Auschwitz was in very short supply. The air raids continued and increased, and by November, it felt like a complete battlefield. Artillery, air raids, and all the experiments stopped. It was January 27, 1945, Saturday at 4:30. A woman ran into the barrack and began yelling at the top of her voice, "We are free, we are free, we are free." Wonderful. What does it mean? It was snowing heavily. I stood there maybe 30 minutes when my eyes got used to the snow, and at a distance I could see lots of people. They were all wrapped in white camouflage raincoats. They were smiling from ear to ear, and the most important part was they didn't look like the Nazis. We ran up to them, they gave us chocolate and cookies and hugs, and that was my first taste of freedom.
Mein Schlaganfall, den ich vor circa 11 Jahren erlitt, war eine zweite Chance für mich, mein Leben zu überdenken und den Fokus zu ändern. Und ich habe diese Chance angenommen. Ich habe meinen Familienanteil an meinen Partner verkauft und begann über dieses Thema öffentlich zu reden. In Schulen und in Universitäten ermahne ich Studenten, wachsam zu sein für das Erstarken der neuen rechten Gewalt und dies weltweit. Menschen zu unterstützen, die selbst nicht in der Lage sind, sich zu verteidigen gegenüber Ausgrenzung und Verfolgung durch derartige Gruppen und Organisationen.
Have you ever thought about changing your name from Hoess to something else that wouldn't be connected to all these things?
No, never. Well, I think it's more important to use that name for good than to change it. Well, if I'm Mr. Müller, nobody will really give me attention. We see that right-wing movements, racism, antisemitism, now grows in Europe in such a way people don't expect. Every Muslim is now a terrorist, which is not true. So my oldest daughter married now in summer a Muslim. And I said it to one of the teachers, I never expect a question from my oldest daughter, she gets now 30, that she asked me, do you think that it can repeat itself, that it now starts with the Muslims? So when you see how everything works, you use the book Mein Kampf, and make after every Jewish a backslash and put Muslim in, and you have exactly what happens right now.
Let us march against intolerance, and let us march toward a better future for all humanity. Let the march begin.
the people in Germany was the intelligent people in the world. They do it. What? In the same days, הם הרגו פה את האנשים. They killed the man here. In the same days, in the same hour, they sing and song the Chopin and Wagner. What? My mind is I cannot believe. The children, they have children. Today, by the days, הם הורגים את האנשים ביום.
They're killing the men and women
ובערב באים הביתה לילדים שלהם.
In the evening, they are coming to their children.
They come to their children.
How can they do thing?
איך אפשר לחיות ככה?
How can you live like this?
I ask 83 years. Why? And I have not answer.
We are right now on the first concentration camp called Dachau, which my grandfather starts his career in 1934 on a way that he was only a small soldier in the system of a concentration camp. He became his job from Heinrich Himmler. Well, they were good friends out of the Ottoman League on the beginning of around 1924, 1925. So they know each other from the beginning of, I said, the rise of Adolf Hitler.
If anybody would have asked me 23 years ago if I would forgive the Nazis, I would have told you, please find a really good psychiatrist. You're absolutely crazy. Well, nothing happened until Miriam died.
End of the First World War, he became a farmer, went in the east of Germany, worked there, and Heinrich Himmler get him out of there and said, okay, we need guys like you from the First World War, believer in German National Party. So they met each other and they fight for a free German, for natural German, no enemies. That means around the Polish border, the French border are enemies. So to get them out, they create a group called the Rostbacher. And it was a really cruelty group. And on the end, they had more than 200,000 active, I will not tell them soldiers, normal guys, but it was not allowed in Germany to create an army. So it was like a militia in that time.
A week or so after Miriam died, I received a telephone call from a professor at Boston College, and he said to me, Eva, I heard you speak about Nazi medicine. And I'm doing one of those conferences, and I want you to come and lecture. And by the way, he said, when you come to Boston, it would be really, really nice if you could bring with you a Nazi doctor. Stunned at such a request, I said, where on earth do you think I can find one of those guys? Last time I looked, they are not advertising in the yellow pages. And he said to me, think about it, maybe you come up with some kind of an idea. And I did. I remember that the last project that Miriam and I worked on was a documentary done by German television, ZDF, and in that documentary we finished in 1992. There was a Nazi doctor from Auschwitz. He was not my doctor, but his name was Hans Munch, and he was a friend of Mengeles.
And Martin Bormann itself was later in the party of the Nazis, than my grandfather. So he helped him to get in the party. Then he became a training system here. And in 1938, he went to Oranienburg on the next level. A bigger camp, a higher position, more effective before the final solution was approached on that camp. In the meantime, Heinrich Himmler became the Reichsführer SS, the absolutely high leader of SS, SA, Wehrmacht, Gestapo, all these cruelty guys. And Bormann became the secretary of Hitler. So all these three guys were in the hierarchy in high levels. And I think it's in special positions for the coming final solution.
I found a friend who speaks German, and we called Dr. Munch to invite him to the Boston conference. Dr. Munch said he was not going to any Boston conference, and he was willing to meet with me at his house, and he will talk to me alone. So now we are heading to Germany to meet a Nazi doctor.
It was Heinrich Himmler who gave the instruction to Glücks. He was the head of all concentration camps, and give him the information or the instruction and advice to travel to Poland, in the occupied Poland, to visit a small town. In that time it called Auschwitz. Later on it became the terrible name Auschwitz from the Germans. And Himmler was thinking that this area would be quite good about the train tracks, which coming from all 4 points of occupied Europe to one point in the mid.
Dr. Munch, when we arrived at his house, knocked on the door, he came out and greeted me with a lot of kindness and respect. He didn't know anything about the experiments. He said Mengele always told him that the twins experiments were top secret. So we are sitting outside, and I never thought about it. I hear myself say, Dr. Munch, by any chance, do you know anything about the operation of the gas chamber in Auschwitz? And he answers, this is my problem. This is a nightmare that I live with every single day of my life.
I think he is the greatest one in that way, that he organized the extermination of human beings in an industrial way. That he made the plans for how the trains, the cattle wagons get from A to B, how many people are in one cattle wagon, how many cattle wagons on the end, and in which time they had to arrive at Auschwitz on the ramp. So that was especially, and we call them, or the historians call them, the Aktion Hoess. So it was about his biggest project in that way, the Hungarian Jews, the Hungarian solution. And he killed 425,000 people in 56 days. So it shows how, he was more than perfect in his doing. He believed in what he did. And I think it was not only order by order, it was a passion to give everything he can to exterminate the people in the camps.
Zyklon B looks like pellets of white gravel. The gas did not come from the shower heads. A hatch opened in the roof. The Zyklon B canisters were emptied, opened outside the roof and emptied through that opening. They operated like dry ice, so they fell to the floor and they started rising in the shape of fume. As the gas was hitting people's breathing, they would climb on top of each other. Dr. Munch watched, and what he observed, that the first people who were dying were on the bottom. Those who didn't die would climb on top of each other, forming a little mountain of intermingled bodies. The strongest people were always on the top. So if the people on the top stopped moving, he knew that everybody was dead, and he signed one death certificate, no names, just numbers. Anywhere from 500 to 3,000 inmates within minutes. I said to Dr. Munch, this is unbelievable information. I have seen documentaries, I've been reading books, I've been studying the Holocaust, and I said, you must come with me to Auschwitz. I want you to sign a document at the ruins of the gas chamber. So if anybody ever says it didn't happen, I can take that document and shove it in their face. And he said to me immediately, I would love to.
It's like a burden, he walks with me all the time. So I had a really goosebumps all the time when I go inside, and as well like the other camps, I cannot touch anything. So it's really difficult to go inside to know the heritage, and always you get a little bit hunted by yourself if people recognize you or know who you are or which part your grandfather or your family took place in that cruelty Second World War.
For the next 10 months, I would always ask myself, what can I give this Dr. Munch? Maybe there is some hidden idea in my own background, and I searched for everything. A simple idea popped into my head. How about a letter of forgiveness from me to Dr. Munch? I immediately knew that this was a meaningful gift for Dr. Munch. But what I discovered for myself was life-changing. I discovered that I, the victim of Auschwitz, had the power to forgive.
I can and I will not touch anything, so I will be not a comrade to him. I will be not infect myself with his doings. So it's better I leave my hand in my pocket. So he cannot make a takeover over me. I know it sounds stupid, but for me it is a way to walk inside the camps. If I had to touch anything, it was not possible for me to go inside.
So I called my former English professor, asked her to correct my spelling. We met 3 times, and she would correct my spelling, but then she said to me, Eva, that is very nice that you forgive Dr. Munch, but you really need to forgive Dr. Mengele. I got home, closed the bedroom door, and called Mengele every name in the book. And at the end I said, but in spite of all that, I forgive you. And I said, wow, I can even do that to Mengele. And there is what I liked about it. It's so important. There was nothing that Mengele could do to stop me from doing it.
Ich bin 1965 in Ludwigsburg geboren. Ich bin 49 Jahre alt, Vater von 4 Kindern und Großvater von 2 reizenden und geliebten Enkelkindern. Ich wuchs in der Familie seines zweiten Sohnes Hans-Jürgen auf, mein Vater. Und meine Großmutter Hedwig war seine Witwe. Eine Witwe, die immer die ach so gute, alte, wunderbare Zeit lobte und sie nie mental verlassen hat. Das Dritten Reich ist ihr ganzes Leben lang. In the age of 15, when I read the book The Commandant of Auschwitz and the book People at Auschwitz from Hermann Langbein, I was so deeply infected about all that and know that all the years before, when I talked about my father and asked him if it's true that we are involved or part of it, and he said no, it is a mistake. It was Rudolf Hoess, the deputy of Hitler.
So this is the way we arrived in Auschwitz in 1995. Dr. Munch signed his document. I read and signed my document. And I immediately felt that all the pain I carried around for 50 years was lifted from my shoulders, and I was no longer a victim of Auschwitz, nor was I a prisoner of my tragic past. I was free of Auschwitz and I was free of Mengele.
Und das Bildungsprogramm meines Vaters war eine Hypothek von dieser alten Ideologie. Sitz aufrecht, benehme dich diszipliniert. Demut, wasch deine Hände, wenn nicht, körperliche Züchtigung. Mein Vater war ein wahrer Meister darin, einschließlich seines Ledergürtels und den dauernden Sprüchen wie ein Hoess weint nicht. Meine Mutter war eine fürsorgliche Frau, aber auch ein Opfer dieser Familie. Sie war depressiv und versuchte sich mehrfach das Leben zu nehmen. It was the first time I put my foot on a concentration camp in the age of 12, and it was Dachau, with a teacher. And I saw all these blocks on the wall where it said Rudolf Hoess later on became a commandant of Auschwitz, the biggest extermination camp in the world. And I was aware after that, and I recognize when I read the book The Commandant, that my whole family lies about it. They glorified him. It was such a behaved and good soldier and did nothing wrong. Yeah, I can throw up about it. And in that time, when I was 50, it was finished for me. I couldn't stand it anymore. That's why I left the home and took my first own apartment. And from that time on, I never looked back about the family. Der erste Blick auf die Überlebenden, ihre Gefühle, ihren Kampf mit der Geschichte ihres Namens, die Reaktion meiner Familie, nachdem meine Aktivitäten in den Medien bekannt wurden, nennen mich einen Verräter und nicht weiter Teil dieser Familie. Ich sei eine Schande für den Namen Hoess. It is a good fight I fight. And I'm sure as well my kids like my fights. Well, I'm like a fortress for them. And as well, I'm fighting for 1,000 other Germans which not really accept the past of the Germans. But it's part of us. We cannot hide and say, no, nothing happens in that time. Or people say, no, I was not born in that time. That doesn't care if they were born in that time. I think history, when we get history out of our focus, for the present time, we have no future.
Morgen beginnt das sogenannte Auschwitz-Verfahren, ein Verfahren, in dem die Staatsanwaltschaft Hannover dem Angeklagten Beihilfe zum Mord in 300.000 Fällen vorwirft. Der Angeklagte soll als Freiwilliger der Waffen-SS von 1942 bis 1944 im Konzentrationslager Auschwitz tätig gewesen sein, dort in der Häftlingsgeldverwaltung seinen Dienst versehen haben, also in der Abteilung, die das Hab und Gut, das die Deportierten zurücklassen mussten, erfasst hat, verwahrt hat und dann weitergeleitet hat. Die Anklage beschränkt sich auf einen Zeitraum von Mai 1944 bis Juli 1944, den Zeitraum der sogenannten Ungarn-Aktion. In dieser Zeit wurden rund 425.000 Personen allein aus Ungarn nach Auschwitz verschleppt und 300.000 von ihnen sofort nach ihrer Ankunft ermordet.
He was responsible for collecting the money of the victims, of the arriving Jews. He was standing at the ramp, he was collecting the items, money, bills, jewelry, as well as putting away suitcases and the luggage of the arriving Jews and other victims who were sent to Auschwitz. It's an important trial for a new generation of Germans. We had trials against the leading perpetrators from Auschwitz in the 70s, that is 40 years ago. And after that, the prosecution stopped. So we have a new generation of Germans. We have a generation of Eastern Germans, for instance, who have never been followed a trial, who've never seen any proof brought to a court for the crimes committed in Auschwitz.
He will do his part in this historic moment, being the one to admit that he was an SS, that the Holocaust took place, which Holocaust deniers will not believe a Jewish woman's word, but will have to believe an SS guard's words.
Was erwarten Sie von diesem Prozess?
Freispruch oder was? Ich weiß es nicht.
Mit Eva Kor entstand eine Beziehung und Freundschaft, wie ich es nie erwartet hätte. Aber wir fanden heraus, dass wir eigentlich so unterschiedlich nicht sind. Dass wir im gleichen Projekt arbeiten, nur von verschiedenen Seiten. Die Vergangenheit nicht zu vergessen. Ein Bewusstsein zu schaffen, dass wir so etwas wie Auschwitz nie wieder zulassen dürfen. Menschenrechte sind nicht selbstverständlich. Man muss täglich für sie kämpfen.
Have any of you ever received first email from somebody saying, I want to hug you? That's crazy. I was very busy. I did not have the time to analyze and read up in the internet about Rainera Hoessa. Second email he writes to me, but I responded to him, kind to be polite. I don't want to hurt his feeling. I said, sure, but please don't squeeze me because I bruise very easily. And I'll give you a hug too. I thought that was nice. Then he writes to me and he says, I would like you to be my grandma. That is even crazier than the other letter. So I said to him, but I cannot be your grandma without at least meeting you face to face to get that interaction. What do you feel when you meet a person face to face? To me, it's very important. And I look in your eyes, and if I think that you are who you say you are, and I will be your grandma.
And I saw that this lady got the same problem like I got. She prays forgiveness and her own side. Hated. So I work against racism, I work against my own family, the same system. The Nazis hate me, my family hate me, so let's see what happens. So I wrote her emails and we met in 2014 in Auschwitz. We signed the pledge, and from this time on, I think it's unbelievable. It's such a relationship and a powerful relationship, and it shows people that both sides together can work together and to stand things like together. So we had not to be enemies anymore.
So the fact that he is a grandson of Rudolf Hoess, it says to me the following: that is the ultimate revenge. Rudolf Hoess does not enjoy his grandson, but I do.
Eva, don't do it. Don't jump in the water. If you like swimming, do it in the hotel room. You're hiding. Oh my goodness, you're so great. I can't believe it.
We need a little kid to play peekaboos. The kids would go banana. Peekaboo, I see you.
You're looking around the tree like a little hobbit.
He deserves to live without everything that his grandfather, grandmother, and the Nazi family imposed on him. He was a little boy who had to be so poorly treated that he's a very bright, very daring person, but he has a lot of damage in his character that I don't know if he can correct it. But he deserves to be free of that. And I feel that if he could forgive them, some of that would go away. And he deserves to live without all that pain. Every human being who has been damaged by other people, by life or society, deserves to be free. Because we are all born to live, to be the best that we can be. I want to be the best Eva. Rainer can be the best Rainer. But with all that baggage of anger and pain, you cannot be the best you.